Excellent. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. Let me double check the time because I do have a habit of starting early. Well, straight up, 2 o'clock. All right. Welcome. Thanks for being here. What's that noise? Oh, birds. Hi. Sorry about that. All right, Raymond, welcome. Okay, we are at the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors, and my name is Kevin Burke, and there is my telephone number, and there is my email address. Email is usually better if you need to get a hold of me, and I do have a bunch of messages from this morning that I have to respond to, but I only get a short break in between the 2 classes, and so somewhere in there I get lunch. So anyway, thank you for being here today. Email is probably the best for me. And by the way, I have it uppercase K, uppercase B, uppercase R. That's how your email address should appear when you have it in your signature line, so that people can more readily understand how it's written. So anyway, taught ePro for many years, and so that's one of the principles that we did teach everybody. So I've got some credentials that I guess make me qualified to speak about the subject matter today. I've been in real estate for well over 40 years, so I assure you I've been on more than one listing appointment. In fact, I've been on a lot of listing appointments, and that tends to be where I make my money, is working with the seller, but I'm also probably equally divided with the buyer, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Hi, Linda, welcome. Jacqueline, welcome back. All right. Okay, so what else? Anything else in here that's important? We're going to talk about how to take a listing, sales and marketing for the real estate professional. I don't even have it on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. Enough about me. Let's talk about something else. So we're going to be talking about things that are going to appear to be legal. I am not a practicing attorney. I want to make it very clear. I have no interest at all. Linda will tell you. I've just, no. They work too hard. They work harder than we do. They're working weekends and nights and all that kind of stuff. And I just, I've never really met one who was really, really happy. So anyway, I'm very happy. So I do a lot of trial work now, but it's limited to testifying as an expert witness. And so I do standard of care, did the broker exercise, standard of care, things like that. Agents' duties of inspection and disclosure, and finally market conditions in San Diego County. And so those are my specialties, and God knows I get enough calls on that. So conversation today is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of your broker, nor for that of your attorney. And please consult with them as appropriate. Welcome back, Rico. All right. Okay. So our webinars are intended to be interactive. Please utilize the Q&A button to ask questions or offer input. I say that every time, and then I get kind of lonely when I think I'm talking to the wall, because if you have a question, please let me know. It's kind of important to me. So it also helps me to gauge what direction we need to take the talk about. So otherwise I just sit up here and talk for 2 hours. So anyway, and today we could talk for 2 hours pretty easily about the subject. So this morning we did Master My Farm. That was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed that one. I believe in taking over neighborhoods and stuff like that, and it's a good way to assure yourself that you'll be in the money for a long time. This afternoon we're going to talk about how to create the winning listing presentation, and then on Tuesday morning we will talk about the new and the revised June 2023 CAR forms, and those are the ones that came out on June the 26th. So that'll be pretty current. There are 67 revised forms. Most of the revisions are the same across a lot of them. So we'll talk about that, and I'll show you where to find them. I'll show you the easy way to know if your transaction is including them. And then in the afternoon there, we're going to talk about leases, but then more importantly, how to create a template. And so I'll show you how to create a lease template, but it's also going to be how to create a template in general. And as a bonus for going to that webinar, I'll send you my templates if you want them. So you let me know, and I'm happy to send them to you. So that'll help you a little bit. So today we're going to talk about member benefits. And we're going to talk about how to create that winning listing presentation. And I say winning because that's kind of my goal. When I go to take a listing, I kind of think that I want to get 100% of the listings that I want to get. And that's an important concept, because you don't necessarily want to get all the listings. You want to get 100% of the ones you want, and you might have to walk away from a couple of them. Okay, so it's going to depend on what you want to do. I've had, very rarely have I said, to the seller, this just isn't going to work out. Hey, Mike, welcome. This just isn't going to work out. And I have walked away from listings before. I choose which ones I want. You get to this point in your career, with all the gray hair, and now we're doing, it's pretty much repeat offenders, as we say, people that just come back again and again and again. So, and again, I love them. They're great clients. I've just helped them so many times. I have one client I've done 22 transactions for. So I don't know, that's a pretty good number. I think that works out well. Okay, so there's going to be some that you don't want, and you have to be able to identify those pretty quick, because remember, it's like I always say, there's 24 hours in a day. I have the same 24 hours that you do, and so some of you on the call today know what I'm talking about. We say, like, I wasted my time with those people, and so you'll get really excuse me, you'll get really good at identifying which ones are a waste of time and which ones are going to be beneficial for you. Okay, so there's this principle. It says the more listing appointments that you go on, the greater your chances of success. If you don't go on listing appointments, you're not going to get any listings. We all agree. You got to go on listing appointments. Okay, and so the sooner you start doing that, the better off you are. The more confident you're going to become, the calmer you will become, and that's the key ingredient of the whole thing. I've always been very calm in my appointments. And some of them, I had a listing appointment. I worked closely with law enforcement back in the 80s, and I remember going to a seller's home. He was a sheriff's deputy, and I remember going to his home and for a listing appointment, and the appointment was at 10 o'clock at night. And the reason was because he worked graveyard. Well, I worked swing, right? I worked 4 to midnight, and so so again, same 8 hours, but unfortunately, I get there at 10 o'clock. He's just getting started, and then I left the house about 5 o'clock in the morning. And so, I realized after that I had to set my listing appointments on my own terms. I got the listing, obviously, and I sold it. I mean, did pretty well with that, but you got to be, also use your head when you're doing this. Okay. So the more successful you will be. And so you've got to go on listing appointments. You got to start setting them up. Some of we have another agent in San Diego area. Takes around 130, 150 listings a year. And his appointments are 15 minutes long. He literally goes into the office at 8 o'clock in the morning, starts calling on the expireds, calls until about noon, takes a half an hour for lunch, and then he goes to the appointments that he's been creating in the morning. So as he created the appointments in the morning, he went to them in the afternoon. None of this, I'll see you Friday. I mean, it was today kind of thing. But he'd literally go in on the appointment and he'd sit down with the seller and he would start reading a script. And the seller would say, I know because I had this conversation with him. He says, seller would say, are you going to keep reading the script? He goes, yeah. And he go, okay, all right. So he'd read the script and then he'd say, sign here. And if the seller gave him any kind of trouble at all, he got up and started walking out. And the seller would say, where are you going? And he said, well, I got another appointment, because, he literally would line these appointments up from the calls he was making during the day, during the early morning. And so, that's kind of an arrogant position to take. I get it. It's not necessarily my style, but I'm selling a lot of houses and it works. And so, as I always say, all personalities make money in this business. And so it's definitely a numbers game. All right. I admit I have an attitude problem. Early in my career, I went on a listing appointment. Did I skip it? No, I didn't. Okay. I went on a listing appointment thinking, oh my God, I hope I get this listing. Right. And I know some of us still feel that today. When I go on a listing appointment today, I think, do I want this listing? And that's a whole different position to take on things. Okay, so yep, I got an attitude problem. It's just a difference in ideologies. We call it PMA. But let's discuss some of the important points about positioning yourself for your success, which is what we really want to be talking about today. So one of the things I talk about, it seems like I'm missing a couple of slides because I do have one in there that says PMA, positive mental attitude, that kind of thing. So one of the questions that comes up is, will you be sending a pre-listing packet? I'm not a strong believer in those. I know that they're, I want to be careful when I'm doing something like that because, I don't want to be soliciting somebody else's listing. Normally when somebody sends out a pre-listing packet, they're saying, well, I figure it's a 90-day listing or something like that. And so, it's coming up on 90 days, because I can see the market time in the MLS the days on market and the multiple listing service, but I really don't know when the expiration date is, because we don't expose that to you when you look at the listing in the MLS. And so the question is, if you send it prematurely, then are you soliciting the listing of another broker? And that's going to be a DRE issue. It's going to be a code of ethics issue. It's going to have a lot of salient points to it. And so that's one of the big things that bothers me. The other thing is that I know that most of the agents that do this, they have a courier running around dropping off listing packages, and it's good. They've got a system, and the system's important, right? But I'm not sure how effective it really is. Because what are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about how great you are? I mean, hopefully you'll get a chance to do that in person, right? Okay, so make sure, this is important, make sure that all of the decision makers will be at the appointment. Okay, and that's something you're going to be talking about when you're on the phone with the seller. You're going to be talking about, is everybody going to be there? And it's not necessarily just those people who appear on title, because we all know that there's always that trailing. Mom gave us the $50,000 to put down on the property when we bought it, and so mom is part of the decision of whether now mom's not at the appointment. And I've gone on enough appointments myself where I'll get there, the wife is there, apparently the husband's still at work. And it's like, I really think that in that kind of a conversation, you're really just having a gossip session. So, you got to make sure all the decision makers are there. Clearly, you've looked at the title report, the property profile, the CRS tax data, whatever that is. And if you see two people and there's only one person at the appointment, and again, this should have been had on the phone call, and there's only one person, what do we call that when there's a marriage? We call that a marital restructuring, right? Where the husband, the wife's not aware the house is for sale, or the husband's not aware that the house is for sale. And so I want to make sure I've got all of the people, clearly all the people that are on the title document. I went on an appointment in Leucadia on Avocado, actually, quite a few years ago, and it was a trust. And so I showed up at the appointment, and of course, people are, they're apparently, interviewing other people. And so I show up, I'm out there with my business partner at the time, and people are coming out of the house, and real estate agents that I knew. So they were literally backing up all the appointments one right after another. Now, of course, I'm never intimidated by that, because everybody's got their own style. And we don't know how that worked out. Obviously they didn't walk out with the listing and say, don't bother, I've got the listing. So, we go in on the appointment, and there's like literally there's a guy in a wheelchair, and he's on oxygen, and he's actually fairly young. And there were 13 people almost in bleachers behind him. And he was the trustee. He was the one responsible for the trust. And these were all nurses, by the way, male and female. And so here they all were waiting to hear our pitch about the listing appointment. And so obviously we were effective in getting it. And sadly, this individual passed away after the sale occurred. And it looked like it was imminent anyway, but he needed to sell the house so that everybody, the rest of the trust would get the proceeds. And so you're not going to know. But here I got 13 people, about 14, including him, in the room. He's the decision maker, but all the rest of them have input on that. Okay. So make sure that you've got all the decision makers at the appointment. So of the decision makers, you're going to need to quickly identify who the key decision maker is. And then we're going to talk about that when we talk about positioning later. We talk about where you sit, things like that. But it could be the 5-year-old. Sometimes it's the 5-year-old who's running the show, and we've all had that happen, right? We've all been on that appointment where it's like, okay, clearly this kid is the master of the house. So make sure that you're trying to get along with everybody, right? And if anything, you want to make a good impression, right? So the time, I think this is critical. The time that you spend in that first meeting is worth all the time that you're going to spend with them later. So my theory is that if you spend a lot of time with the seller in the beginning appointment, in the very beginning of the first listing, you'll be able to answer a lot of questions. You'll be able to take care of a lot of issues, and you'll minimize the interaction that you have, with questions that should have been had in the beginning of the listing. So I went on a listing appointment. I talk about it all the time up in Lake Forest, former student of mine from the college, one of the colleges. and he wanted to sell his house. And so he had bought the house from somebody else, and he said, I wish I hadn't done that, but I knew when we sold it, I wanted to work with somebody who really knew what they were doing. And so here I spent 3.5 hours on that appointment with him up in Lake Forest. 3.5 hours. We went over every single disclosure. I'm a strong believer in having the seller complete all of the disclosures, statutory and contractual, at the time of that first appointment. So folks, 3.5 hours. Now I ask you, when's the last time you went on an appointment for 3.5 hours? But frankly, I was done, right? I mean, after we did that, we're finished. We had everything we needed. We had the natural hazard disclosure signed. We had the HOA docs. We had all this stuff. So critically important. And again, it proved to him that his decision on who to use was accurate. It was somebody that was going to be really thorough. I think you need to bring all that stuff with you. And I'm going to show you my strategy and how I get every single listing. And some of you know my former business partner. And I remember her saying at one point, people will sign anything just to get rid of you. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I believe that. I think they sign with me because they realize that, you know, I'm systematized. I know what I'm doing, and I want this to be an effective sale for them. Okay. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's their decision. But yeah, sometimes I'm pretty good at wearing people down. Okay, so Linda's even made the comment that, you know, I'm a very different person when I teach. She was in my real estate principles class up at Miracosta, and then after she graduated from that class, she attended my law class, which I'm in the middle of teaching again right now at UCSD, and that's in the paralegal program. It's an ABA approved course. I teach attorneys real property law, and so Linda attended that class. Very first time she attended that, she came up to me after the class. She says, "I don't know who you are." And I go, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, you're a very different person in that class up there. You know, with the real estate, people want to get in real estate, but you're a very different person with the attorneys in the room and the paralegals in the room." And I said, "Yeah, well, they're lawyers. You know, what, I'm getting even, right?" And so, you know, it was a joke, but she said, "You know, you're just a different guy. I mean, you're much more somber. You know, we're not making a lot of jokes. We're not having a good time. We're really just there to do business and get out." Okay. So anyway, again, that very first appointment, if you're in and out, and a lot, like I said, this other individual takes a lot of listings. He's in and out in 15 minutes. Wow, go get them, right? We'll talk about a lot of other issues that happen with that later on down the line. So it is okay to have a long listing appointment. I'm a strong believer in a long listing appointment. So you've got 3 choices of venue. All right. So venue being the where are we going to have this? Okay, let me bring this over a little closer. So where are we going to have this? And so the first one, of course, is to go to the owner's house. Okay, so going to the house gives you a chance to wander around. I'm a strong believer that that's the way to do it. I think that's always been my preference, is go to the owner's house, preferably with them at the house. Especially if they've got a tenant, you know, I'd like to be there with the owner, with the tenant, go through all that kind of stuff. So that'd probably be my preferred way. And so it's got its pluses and it's got its minuses. If you've got any thoughts one way or another on that, you know, please put it up in the Q&A field. You know, I'm more than happy to take a look at it. But as I said earlier, you know, I'm a strong believer in going to the house of the customer, because there's a lot of things that happen there, and I can get a real sense of what we're trying to do. But unfortunately, they're in their safety place, right? They're in their home, and so it's a safe place for them, and so they may not be quite as interactive with me as I would have liked them to have been. Okay, so again, it is my preference. I'd rather go there. But what's my second choice? Owner comes to the office or to some public place. You know, if you're concerned about your own safety or something like that, then that may be a good option for you. You may want to meet them at your office or at the green awning or something like that. There are more distractions there. I'm not a big fan of that. And probably my least favorite is doing everything over the internet. And so, you know, I've had this conversation on more than one occasion with the Department of Real Estate. You know, you have a job. Your job is to advise and counsel. And so, you know, how do you do that if all you do is you email them the forms to fill out? I'm going to tell you that is such a weak defense. And I've seen people try it. It's a losing case. So, you know, you want to go over the forms with your client. So if you're going to do this on the internet, and again, I'd rather be sitting right in front of them so I can answer questions. I can look them in the eye. I can tell when we're faltering about things. And I certainly don't like sending packages that never get returned. And so that's why they're doing everything over the internet. I'm going to have them on I don't use Zoom for purposes of these meetings. I use either Microsoft Teams. The Department of Real Estate said they like Teams. They don't use Zoom personally. unfortunately, because it creates some risks for the person doing the presentation. So I guess I've got some risk going on here, but some security issues with my system, but I do it because that's what we've been doing. But Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, I've got the upgraded version of all that stuff. So, but if I'm going to do it, I like the concept of seeing them on the screen. I mean, again, my client's in Cheyenne, Wyoming or something. And so I can see them on the screen. I can see what they're looking at on the form. I can talk to them about it while they're looking at it. And I think that's the way I'm going to handle it, but I'm never, ever going to send, obviously I've got people that have done a lot of business with me, but I like explaining the forms to them and things like that. Okay. And so my advice is, number one, go to their house. Number two, meet them in the office or a public place. And then my least favorite, of course, is doing everything on the internet. But if you got to do it, you got to do it. I'm sure not going to fly to Chicago to have a seller, wet sign a listing agreement with me. Okay. So all the aboves have their pluses and minuses. We talked about these. I think that when you go, let's talk about appearances for a second. So when you go on your appointment, I think you need to dress for success. And I think you need to do that regardless of the venue. So regardless of whether it's at the owner's house or whether it's at a public place or whether it's over the internet even, I think you need to be dressed for success. Okay. So I think that's kind of important and appropriately, by the way. And one of the comments Linda made to me when she first got a real estate license and we were wandering around, a very affluent community in San Diego. And she says, I don't understand how come like the top, gets shorter and the bottoms get shorter and there's like less fabric and stuff like that. And of course, she was talking about the way we're dressing. Maybe we're kind of sending the wrong message, that we're dating versus, on a business appointment. So I think that business casual is probably the best way to go. Again, not my observation, it was Linda's observation, but I think business casual is probably a better way to do it. I'm wearing logo material almost every appointment, but a lot of my appointments are on the fly, right? So a lot of my appointments, it's like, can you come over here right now? I don't have time to go get a manicure and a pedicure or whatever stuff. I don't have time for all that. I might have to be just ready to go. And so that's usually the way that I am. So, okay, I get that. Remember, and this is a truism, you never get a second chance to make a good impression. I did get that from my former business partner, and I know she's quoting somebody else, but you really never do. That first impression, people make a decision that they're going to work with you because they like you. And I really strongly believe that. I don't think it's necessarily what you know. I mean, I've got credentials. I've had, judges look at my CV and go, oh my God. And it's like, I get it. And so, thank you. But, at the end of the day, you have a greater likelihood of getting the listing than I do if you're more personable than I am. All right. So, but you never get that second chance. So they decide, they got about 15 seconds. They're going to decide if they like you or not. It's going to be based on eye contact, body gestures, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I think you should take classes on that. Those are the things that they are looking for when they're just, and then when to close. So, that's what I'm always looking for is like when we've got that, this love at first sight kind of thing, then I'm going to close for that, where we're going on the listing. Okay. So, all right. So I would recommend against wearing sunglasses at the first meeting. I mean, I know so many cool people out there. I mean, really, really cool people. But I think showing up for that meeting wearing sunglasses, you remember, I agree with mirror matching. You get there and the client's wearing sunglasses, I don't know, everybody's hiding their eyes. And I think that's part of what my relationship building is all about. But so I wouldn't be wearing sunglasses at the appointment. I mean, I've got really cool sunglasses, Costco $23.95 something, but at the end of the day, I want them to see my eyes. I want them to know that I'm sincere about what I'm doing. All right. Okay. So confidence, and this is the part I was talking about earlier. So what you need to take with you to the appointment, and this is really important. What do you need to be confident. And remember, how did we get confidence? We go on a lot of appointments, we keep going, be prepared for rejection. It's always a possibility. Okay. But you got to have that confidence. You got to look like you're confident in what you're doing because you're sending a signal that you're good at what you do. You're good in sales, whatever, that kind of thing. All right. So PMA, and I said that before, stands for positive mental attitude. I think you really have to have it. The clipboard. So let's talk about the clipboard for a second. I'm in love with my clipboard. Something I came up with about 30 years ago, and I use it on all my points. So all of you out there who know me and realize, oh my gosh, this guy's doing a lot of transactions. I'm not going to tell you it's all about the clipboard, but the clipboard's really important. we're going to talk a lot about the clipboard today. So, what's on my clipboard? So we'll talk about, hi, Wesley, welcome back. So my clipboard. So, and my listing input sheet is attached to it. Okay. So, absolutely. Confidence is key. Yes. Thank you, Rico. Prospective client consents. Not only that, but it's like a dog smells fear. I mean, if you look confident, I had I had a trial appearance that I was in a year or so ago. And I'll never forget, I was sitting up in the bench next to the judge, and the attorney is just giving me the third degree, right? And so jury's sitting right there. I love juries, okay? And so jury's sitting right there, and he's starting to ask me questions, and I'm responding to him. And so, and I was the last witness. I'm always the Trevor Hoffman, and I know somebody corrected me that he's not the relief pitcher for the Padres anymore. Probably hasn't been for quite some time. But anyway, so I'm the Trevor Hoffman of most all the cases that I'm on. And I walked out, I'm sitting outside because I didn't know if it was time to go or not. Well, the attorney that I was representing came out and he said, you had just the right amount of arrogance. And so I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, because I just destroyed this attorney. And yet then the next time I see the attorney, they're both there, and I'm representing both of them now, testifying on both of their behalves. So, at the end of the day, confidence, don't get crazy about it. Don't be arrogant about it. Remember, respect with your client who's there with you. So Rico, thank you for bringing that up. Listing input sheet. Listen, okay, so what does my listing input sheet look like? Let's take a look. I'm gonna pull it up over here because I make a big thing out of this. So this is the listing input sheet. This is the sheet that you get in your multiple listing service. And so I'm not going to go there. I'm just realizing I'm probably going to get timed out on my, hold on a second. Let me just go back to my list and then we'll come back. Sorry, because I'll get timed out. It does it to me all the time. So here's my listing input sheet. This is available to you in your MLS, upper right-hand corner where it's got the MLS documents. You click on that, you go down to the bottom, you got your listing input sheet, residential 1 to 4. You can see that, we've got a PDF program that fills in things, that on all of our listings, but I'm taking this with me. And why? Why am I taking this with me? And here's why. It's how many pages is this? 8. So let's go down the bottom here. I think it's about 8 pages. There's a lot of pages, right? So, why? When I show up and I got my clipboard, 15 pages. Okay. Some of this is mobile homes and things like that. But the point is this: I've got the listing input sheet in front of me, and I have it in front of me for a lot of different reasons. One of them is I want the seller to know I'm serious about the listing. But I'm also serious about wanting to know about the property, okay? And so I tell people this all the time, you calling the seller, you sending the seller an email saying, was that gas or electric? Is it on septic or sewer? All those things that you don't know the answers to really should feel embarrassed about that. I mean, these are things that you have the ability, here's the sheet, go through the sheet. The blue items are those items that are required, okay? Green is mobile home, and then the mandatory fields will populate themselves automatically. But you can see, I don't even put the commission in here because I don't know what our commission is going to be. I don't put it in as a template for our agents. You'd be surprised at what some of our agents take listings for. It's amazing to me. Very good agents. And so, we don't do entry only. We don't do limited service. So talk to your broker, but those things are going to be pretty easy. 99% of the real estate agents that I know, and I apologize, I don't want to offend anybody, but they sit down in front of the computer and enter things in as they remember them on the listing input sheet. That part I don't get. I don't understand that part. But if you've got a listing, if you've got this sheet in front of you and you're going through this with the seller, like, what? So now I know it's an attached home. I know it's going to be an exclusive authorization right to sell because we don't do exclusive agency, right? But what about the physical characteristics of the property? I get down here, I got, how many entry level, these are required fields. So what's the square footage? That I'm going to use the MLS, the tax autofill when I put the listing in the MLS, but I want to make sure I've confirmed all of that data. So how many stories, how many units in the building, how many parking spaces, room dimensions. Remember that room dimensions are required in our MLS. Okay, we've had people leave SDMLS and go up to the other MLS up north, and only to find out they don't have room dimensions. They don't have Melrose disclosures in there, which is a statutory disclosure. You don't have things like that, and then they come right back. right? So here you got it. You got a place to write down the room dimensions. And so as you're doing that, and we're going to talk about that even more in a minute, but as you're doing that, whatever the room dimensions are, always put the larger number first. It gives gives a sense that the room is larger than it really is. It's just kind of like one of those little subliminal things that I kind of like. But that's why we take this sheet with us. And by the way, when we're done with the listing appointment, down here at the bottom, I'm going to have the seller sign it, right? Because I filled all this stuff in while we were walking around the house. And I always ask them, I say, can you tell me some of these things? And we're going to talk about how I approach this, but it all starts out with that clipboard, okay? Clipboard with the listing input sheet attached to it, all right? And then I'm going to have the entire listing file underneath it. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute as well. So copies, again, what are we taking with us? Copies of anything that you plan to leave with the owner of the property, the current owner, soon to be the ex-owner, right? Never leave copies of the listing agreement. Because why? Because they're going to show that to the next agent. They're going to say, well, this is what this one's going to do it for. What are you going to do for me? And so they're going to use that to compare until they get a really good closer who says, sign here, press down hard bottom, copy's yours. Okay. So never leave a copy of the listing agreement with anybody, because then it gets shared all around and stuff like that. And remember, how much you charge is determined by what your broker's requirement is. We don't get together and talk about, colluding and having, we'll all charge the same commission or things like that. That's just against the law. It's an antitrust violation. So we don't do that. So I don't want to leave my listing agreement anywhere. That's not going to happen. Everybody okay? Number 4, tape measure. Now, tape measure. So what do we just talk about? We talked about those room dimensions, right? Okay. So why our MLS requires it? It was a blue field. It's a required field. So I bring my tape measure. Now I know they got all these fancy dancy things out there, that you lasers, I get it. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute, but my tape measure, remember that SDMLS, our MLS requires that you input the room dimensions. Okay. And so again, that's going to be length times width, not height, because then that would be the volume. But even the Department of Real Estate doesn't ask the height question on a state exam. So length times width is what it's going to be. Okay. And again, the larger number first is how I'm going to do it. And again, that would give you the volume. So I always say, have the seller hold the business end of the tape measure. And so it's interesting. I've had people say, what does that mean, the business end of the tape measure? And I always say, well, that's the end you get sued on. And they go, I don't know, wait a minute, what sued? I go, I always hold 0. Right? You hold the other end. So we're going to write down whatever it is that you see, and that's going to be the measurement. Now, you're not usually going to get sued on that, but if you do get, it'll be something completely different. It's usually square footage or something like that. But I always say that to kind of shake the seller up a little bit. Then they realize, oh, that was pretty funny, right? Yeah. Well, I want to keep them guessing. Okay. So, but if they ask, you tell them that's the end that you get sued on. And so I never get sued on 0. If I'm going to get sued, I'm going to get sued on 9, 9 and 8, right? 9 feet, 8 inches. And somebody asked me the other day, should I round up, round down? I say, you probably do whichever, because, we're not going to probably hold you to it. But, back in the day, and some of you on this call today know what I'm talking about, the average judgment for being off on square footage was $250 a foot. Today, forget it. It's, numbers are crazy. So, do your best. Put those numbers in there. I think you round up. I'm okay with that. But people would sue you because they had to put more carpeting in because they didn't realize the room was bigger. It's just kind of crazy stuff. So I never worry about that, by the way. So be sure, if you're taking your measurements electronically, make sure that you verify that those numbers are correct. Okay, so I just kind of the old school. I just kind of like that tape measure concept. Okay, how about my camera? Remember that your MLS also requires, and I think a camera, hopefully, some of the cell phones out there are really good. I mean, I don't know, difference between Apple and banana and celery sticks or whatever, but some of the cell phones out there have really good cameras in them, okay? But, make sure you're taking a good picture. If it looks like, it's the same blurry vision that you have, then that's probably not going to be a good idea, right? So the MLS does require that you include at least 1 photo, all right? So this is really important. Within 72 hours, within 3 days, okay? We got away from calling it hours. Now we're doing it days. 3 days of inputting the listing, okay? And if you don't, you're going to get a ticket. In fact, they're going to send you a warning. It'll send you a warning that says you didn't include at least 1 photo. And that's when you input the listing. When you hit go, it sends you a message and says, you didn't input a photo. Do you want to put a photo in there? You got 3 days, right? And so what does the photo have to be? It's got to be a photo of the property or the neighborhood. I was talking to a broker this morning and she said, I'm going to take a picture of the ocean. And I said, can you see the ocean from the unit? And the answer was absolutely, you can see the ocean from the unit. And so that's a good thing. But if the view of the ocean is through the master bedroom window, master bedroom bathroom, we can't say master, the primary anymore. So, if that's the view, I'm not sure that that's, truth in advertising. Okay. And so, so a lot of people are looking at that picture because the picture goes up on the internet. So you have to have at least one. And if you got the photographer coming, on Saturday, then just take a photo and put it in there because you got to have something in there. But again, that photo needs to be of the property or of the community. And then again, if you're going to include a view, make sure it's a view from the unit. Okay. All right. So it's kind of a big deal. Question, anonymous. Hi, how are you? Welcome back. Where will I find the form to take the listing meeting that I fill out with all the property details? Okay, so good question, everybody. I'm gonna go back to it because I want to show you. So this is the listing input sheet, and this sheet is available if you go into your MLS. And if I can remember how to get there, here we go. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to SDAR and I'm going to log in, and then I'm going to go log in. And then over here on the right-hand side, up at the, whoops, wrong, not there yet. Paragon, I use Paragon. I teach it. I've been teaching it for decades. See up here where it says MLS Documents. Can you see that all right? Click on MLS Documents down here, lower left-hand corner, MLS Input Forms. Okay, so we got there pretty quick. It's not that hard. But when I click on it, it shows me all the different property types. So when I'm taking a listing, I got to know what property type it is, and it's going to match what I've got up here under search, right? So, so these numbers match these down here. The very first one is the residential listing input sheet, and that is the one that I would include. Again, first document up on my clipboard, and I don't hide it. I want the seller to know I'm writing down everything you're saying, because what you're saying is really important to me. And I say that to people all the time. If I've got a bad telephone connection, I say, hang on, can you repeat that? What you're saying is really important. I want to know, that I'm answering your question properly. You can see my grade book in the upper left hand corner for the university. So anyway, I should probably close that. Okay, so are we good? Everybody okay there? Okay, so back. So here again, at least one photo of the property or of the community itself. Nothing personal about you in there. Please, no human beings, no animals, clearly not your sign. That'll get you a ticket, right? In fact, the MLS has software that'll redact your sign. If you take a picture of the property with your sign in the picture, they have software that takes it out. It's ugly. They'll usually let you know that it's a violation, give you an opportunity to put another picture in place. But of course, you say, well, the sign was already up. Take it at an angle, do something, but you need to get that sign out of the picture, or else they'll get it out of there for you. And again, it's not a pretty sight. Okay, you're welcome. Absolutely, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, good. All right. So you know where that is. Okay, excellent. I'm going to show you my template here in a minute, so you'll see how it is that we do things. Marketing examples. If you're going to bring any marketing examples. So for the longest time, well, actually not a really long time, for probably a couple months, I ran full page ads in the Union Tribune. It was costing me $30,000 an ad. And that was really expensive. But I was getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. So, the benefit versus the burden, that the gain that I was getting was exceptional. So it was good. Then as time went on, I realized that the calls were going down, down, down. I'm running these ads, but I'm running the ad, and of course I tell everybody what I do. Well, sure enough, other people are imitating what I'm doing. So other people are running the full page ad, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not getting that. So this is that "Who Moved My Cheese" thing that you should read, right? And that is, that sometimes the ball moves around on you. So I got to a point where I just wasn't getting nearly enough calls to warrant, if I'm selling 15 houses off of this thing and it's costing me 30 grand for an ad, I'm good with that. Right. So, my office that I had with the balloon people, was costing me about $30,000 a month to keep the doors open. And that didn't even include the ads. So just so you know, I would bring in those full page ads on listing appointments, and I would say, I do this. They'd never seen anybody do something like that. Of course, nobody was putting the revenue into it because they weren't necessarily making as much money either. So, so I just turned it around and said, if the business is going to make me money, I'm going to put it back into the business. And that's why I did what I did. And then again, as I said, people started copying my ad. And then I got to a point where the company that I was working for copied my ad. And so I got a hold of the newspaper again and I said, okay, I'm canceling the, I know I have a contract with you, but you've got them all over, forget it. And so I said, unless you do this, and I had them put, because the company had gone out and put themselves in the middle, what we call a double truck, right? So I said, as long as you put me in the facing page, I'm good. I'll keep going, right? And so now the company's using my colors. I've got my colors. It looks like it's all me on the whole inside of the newspaper. And so I was good with that. And then that all changed, and lots of the newspaper got thicker and thicker. So folks, if I tell you anything else, try different things, move around. Okay, try different things, try different approaches. Certainly go to webinars, certainly go to the motivational speakers and stuff like that. But you need to try new things. So if you've got marketing examples, and most of them are probably going to be internet based, right? So bring those marketing examples with you. Be proud of them. Okay. All right. Listing presentation packet, if you have one. That's an interesting concept. And again, I've known some really good sellers agents, some really good agents in our business, and they go to great pains. And some of our companies create great listing presentation packet. If you've got one, do it. I think I've had one ever. And I remember going on the appointment, and the seller said to me, yeah, I've got this great big thing with all this all about me and all that stuff in there. And I get to the appointment, and it's in the evening, and the seller is dressed to the nines, and apparently an international speaker. I wasn't aware of it, and his wife is dressed very nicely, and she's apparently a practicing attorney, and a good one, by the way. I come in with my little book, and he says, okay, he says, you got 15 minutes. I got, Linda will tell you it takes me 15 minutes just to introduce myself. So anyway, I'm looking at my book, and I'm looking at the seller, and I'm going, crap, this is going to be tough. Excuse my language. That's why SDR has to redact all that language. So anyway, I'm going, oh God, I've got all this stuff prepared for this thing, and they really just want me to hoof it. And so I said, okay, well, seller asked me two questions. We're going to talk about this in a minute. How much you gonna get me, and how much you gonna charge me to get there. We're going to talk about those two things in just a second, how important those are. Be prepared for the question. And so, how much are you going to get me? I'm going to get you the same price you have it currently listed. He was currently listed with another broker who happened to be a friend of mine. And I said, I can't solicit this listing because, you've already listed with somebody else. And the seller says, yeah, but we're canceling the listing. I said, okay, well, you called me, so I can show up for that appointment. I just can't solicit you. And so, and sure enough, the seller is involved in a lawsuit with the buyer that had come in on the property. And the lawsuit, some of you, if you're familiar with Del Mar, there was a rumor that Del Mar was going to put the new fire department over at the I think it was on 10th Street or 11th Street or something. And so the buyer got cold feet and said, I'm not going to take the chance. The old building that they used for a movie studio there in Del Mar. And so the buyer and the seller agreed to cancel the contract. And then, oh, by the way, and again, right up my alley, cancel the contract, but then but they were just going to litigate over the deposit. And it was a significant deposit. And so ultimately the seller won and got the deposit. But at that time, again, all I've got is I'm looking at the listing live in the MLS. And so he says, how much are you going to get me? And I says, I think the price you've got it under contract for is fair. And when I did take the listing and sold it in 3 days, that he agreed. They both agreed. And then how much are you going to charge me to get there? And I said, here's how much I charge. And so he says, okay. And I said, and so how much was the other broker charging? And he says, well, he was doing us a favor. And so, and again, remember what I said earlier about you got to go on a lot of appointments. I mean, you just start getting this stuff. And so he says, well, he was doing us a favor. And so he says he was doing it for this figure, which was significantly less than I was doing it for, than I would do it for, right? And so I said to him, I looked him in the eye and I said, well, that didn't sell it, did it? And then I stopped talking. And my business partner standing over me here go, what the hell, where did that come from? I've never heard that before. And the seller's looking at me and I'm looking at the seller, and the seller says, okay, you can go ahead. You can have your 7% or whatever it was. And I performed and I sold. And so, would you rather have the sale that closes, or would you rather have the sale you got a discount on the non-closing sale? There's all those things to be thinking about. But again, at the end of the day, it was how much you're going to charge me, how much you're going to get me, and how much you can charge me to get there. Those are the only three things that they care about. We're going to talk about your answers to those those items specifically here in just a minute. So listing presentation packet. If your company provides one, do one. Your CMA in your MLS has a really good packet that you can do. And again, I do a whole 2-hour presentation on how to create that. RPR is a great program for a listing packet to put it together. There's a lot of really good. I think we have Cloud CMA. I mean, we have all kinds of stuff. SDAR will buy you the base version. You know, they'll get the base version of you for free. But then of course you've got, you know, people calling you and trying to get you to upgrade to the platinum, this and that, whatever thing. Okay, so be aware of that. I think it's not a bad fit, right? But so when I go, you know, here and I go into you know, so all of these, this is called your San Diego one page. Okay, so this is your single sign-on. So when you go to this page, if for those of you who know me, know that this over here used to be, my schedule was off the charts, because when I was president in 2019, I had to go to everything. So now I guess I'm free as a bird. But anyway, so all these things are San Diego one things. I mean, obviously you pay for your MLS, Zip Forms is in here, Glide, you know, these are all programs that they have gotten for you. People think RPR is free. It's not. You're paying $5 a year for the program. I think it's an excellent program. All right. But this is my one page. And so there's got some great stuff in here that you can use, again, free. But if you sign into LionDesk, for example, and I have a LionDesk account and I turned off all of the solicitations for it. But I want to let you know that was there. So this is some of the tools you have available to you. Again, listing presentation packets, these people all have them. There's some really good stuff in here. So again, be aware that it's there, and then use it, don't use it, whatever works for you. Okay. All right. So listing presentation packet, if any, I frankly don't think you have enough time. I find that, you know, I'll just sit down and have one of those, you know, good friendly home conversation, you know, fireside chats or whatever, friendly conversations with the client. And I think that matters a lot. If I start getting into the point of, you know, flashing pictures back and forth, then they become completely engrossed in it. And better yet, if they're an engineer and I start giving them charts and graphs, I've really lost them, right? Because they're really enjoying that. So be aware that it could be an advantage for you if you're good with one. If you're not, then forget it. Greg Newman's was great. I mean, he had a great listing presentation packet. But he even said to me at one point, he says, half the time I don't even get anywhere, you know, a couple pages into it and we're done. So, you know, it's like all about me. So it has its pluses and minuses. And I think we've talked about those. Comp analysis, again, you know, you have RPR, which is a great program. If you don't know how to get into it, if you're an NAR member, a realtor member, then and you aren't in it, call membership at SDAR. It's 858-715-8040. That's the backline number. If you don't see it in your if you're not able to get it in your program, give them a call. It's almost always just you didn't know what your NERDS number was, stuff like that. You only need your NERDS number and your last name, and if you don't remember your last name, you need to check with your broker anyway. So they can give you your NERDS number and make it easy for you. But great little program. I used to teach it. It's still a great little program. Still $5 a year. Okay. All right. Or you could also, you know, again, 300 data sources, which is kind of cool, you know, versus the MLS, which has, you know, limited to the MLS data only. So, you know, it doesn't cover the for sale by owners. It doesn't cover the, you know, the interspousal grant deeds and stuff like that. Some of you remember in the old day, we would get the property profile with sold comps from the title company. And then we would have the CMA from our MLS, and we would always be putting the numbers up because the ones from the title company would be different than ours because a lot of properties transact without a realtor being involved in them. And so we wanted to make sure that we got a good analysis. So we were frankly having to do the interpretation of the data ourselves. Whereas today I can just open up this program and I've got it all taken care of for me. So your CV, okay, like I said earlier, you know, mine, I don't know, mine's pretty good, I guess. You know, nothing. And by the way, my CV, 6 pages long. I did not intend to do any. When I got my real estate license, I just wanted to go out and have a good time. You know, I had no idea that I would end up doing a lot of the things that I do today. And like that phone call I got the other day, I'm now chair of legal affairs forum for the California Association of Realtors. I had no idea where did that come from, right? So, you know, so sometimes you just end up in a situation where hopefully you're helping others. And that's always been my goal. You know, I never really was concerned about the titles or things like that. So your CV, if you think you need to have it, have it. But just remember an important point. You always want to be interested. So you want to be interested in the client. You don't want to be interesting. You know, nobody wants to sit with somebody who's just all about them. Okay. And so
And it's interesting because my conversations with Linda are very different. She goes, oh, now I'm gonna have to listen to this for 2 weeks. So, I love Linda. Linda grounds me, and she just, she kind of, not in a negative way, but she makes it so that, I don't get off of my high horse. But anyway, be interested. Don't be interesting, right? They don't care. They just want to know if they like you or not. Okay. So let's talk about some opening lines. I've got some great lines that I use, and probably one of the most important questions you're going to ask the seller: can you take me on a brief tour of the property? That is so easy, right? Now think about it. When's the last listing appointment you went on? You knock on the door, they open the door. Hi, how are you? My name is. Always step back a little bit. I mean, it's all science. Don't wear your sunglasses, please. Hi, I'm so and so, I'm here. Thank you for seeing me here today. I'm excited. I get inside. I always ask them who else they've interviewed, and a lot of times they'll tell me, of course, right away. They'll say, "How do you know we're interviewing other people?" Well, I would expect you to do that. I had one that I went on the appointment, and I said to the guy, he says, "I don't remember," and I says, "Well, their business cards in your counter over there at your that breakfast bar thing in the kitchen." He goes, "How'd you know that?" It's like, I don't know. That's where people put it. And so he goes over, he pulls them out. I go, oh, I don't know who that is. Yeah. And so I didn't say that they weren't a good agent or anything. I just said, I don't know who that is, but all right. Okay. So, but can you take me on a brief tour of the property? So, you enter the property. I always like to go left. Some people go right, but whatever. But I always like to go around. I want them to show me the property. Okay. I want them, and I'm listening. I'm listening for the clues that they're sending me, because later on, when we're at the point when we've got the listing going on, I'm going to be, they're going to be saying, here's what we want. And then I'm going to be saying, and here's the things that I'm not going to do because they were on the list you're about to give me. Okay. So do you mind if I take notes? Always ask that. Always ask for permission. I can't tell you how important that is. Why? I mean, do people care if you take notes? No. But the fact that you ask for permission, yes, that's really important. Okay. Like asking people, can I put my open house sign, directional sign in your yard? Nobody ever asks them that. So why don't you ask them? It's just a courtesy. So do you mind if I take notes? Right. And so what are your notes going to be? They're going to be about the property itself. It's going to be about features of the property that the seller is going to tell you that wouldn't necessarily be observable by the eye yourself. Right. But do you mind if I take notes? And so when I first got started in real estate, I go on listing appointments and I write everything down. And so some of you know I've got a fairly photographic memory, right? So I'm not going to forget it. 25 years later, I'm still quoting what people said in meetings, but I'm writing everything down. And so I'd walk out of the meeting and I would throw the notes away. And at that time, back in the early 80s, late 70s, I didn't need the notes. I had what I needed and I had it in my head. Today, I take them for notes for the file in case I need to defend something. Okay. That's probably why I never had to defend anything. All right. So question, is this the time you take notes on the MLS listing document? Absolutely. Absolutely, Rico. Great question. That's where I'm going to do it. And so you read my mind. I think it comes up in another slide here in a minute. But I'm going to take notes. I'm going to write it on that thing. And you know what? I'll make a big deal out of it. Okay. Part of our job is that we need to be showmen. And so I'll be up there, show women, whichever. I'll be up there and I'll ask them stuff, and then I'll start answering. I'll say, whoa, hold on. What you're saying is really important. I want to make sure I've got this right. And so I'll make a big production out of trying to take that note and making sure that I've got it right, even though I know I've got it right, because I'm listening from the four corners, that kind of thing. So great question, Rico. Yeah, I'm doing it on my listing input sheet. It's going to be a mess by the time I get done with it, but I don't want to be floundering for paper. It's almost always going to be on the first page. Okay. What do these marks on the kitchen door jamb represent? And I put that in there because it's like what that is, right? That's the Johnny. As Johnny grew up, they measured Johnny and made Johnny feel good, and they measured the points of his height and things like that. And so it's important to them. Don't spend a lot of time there, all right? Because if you spend a lot of time there, you might be bringing back memories, things that that will encourage them to keep the house. You don't want to keep the house. You want to sell the house. Okay, but definitely ask the question. It kind of melts the heart. They feel better about it. And again, not supposed to be a class on psychology, but Linda constantly accused me of being a psychologist, and so whatever. So write everything down on your. There you go, Rico. Thank you, buddy. On your listing input sheet. Okay, put it, you want it all in one place. I don't want 35 pieces of paper that I've got to put together later. So I'm going to put it all on the listing input sheet, okay, in front of them. All right, while they are speaking, okay, and you are listening, and that's the key. So like I said earlier, I'm a very different person teaching a college class to real estate wannabes. Very different when I'm teaching class to lawyers. Same thing when I'm doing a lecture, very different than when I go on the appointment, and then I'm listening a lot. So I took a couple of my students with me on a listing appointment that I had out in Scripps Ranch, and we wandered all around the house, and I'm taking notes and I'm writing things down, doing all kinds of stuff. And at the very end, and we're all standing in the kitchen. So I had these two gals from class, and then I had Mr. and Mrs. Seller, who interestingly enough, were not standing next to each other. They're standing quite a bit separated from each other. And I got to thinking, okay, I think we may have a marital restructuring going on here. And so, finally I get all done, and I say, yeah, you have any questions for me? And they've already signed everything. I've had them sign everything, and I'm going to show you the order here in a second, but they've signed everything. Okay. And so, so she says, she pipes up and says, well, I guess we should ask you your rate. And I said, I refuse to charge you more than I charge anybody else. Any other questions? And she goes, no. Okay. I go, well, thank you very much. I look forward to moving forward on this and helping you sell the home and blah, blah, blah. And then we left, and we get outside, and the two gals look at me and say, what the hell just happened in there? And I said, well, she asked a question and I answered it. She said, and they said, that's not what she was looking for. I said, I know it wasn't, but they feel like they have to be part of the process. So I allowed that to happen. So, I refuse to charge you more than I charge anybody else. What is that? Okay. So, be on your feet, be thinking, go on enough appointments, and this stuff just kind of flows off of it. Okay. So remember, you are listening. All right. So let them lead you through the house for a lot of different reasons. If not safety, I know you're not really concerned about that. Not too many bad guys invite you, or gals invite you to their house to bludgeon you, but let them lead you through the house. Let them, because they're in charge. You want them to be in charge. All right. They will tell you where the signing room is. And again, I got my listing input sheet, and I'm checking the box, and I'm looking in the bedroom, and I say, oh, wow, we got a ceiling fan, bedroom number 2, that kind of thing. I'm kind of doing my Avid, right? I mean, I know some of us think, well, I may not get the listing. Why would I do the Avid? I don't have that problem. My problem is, I know I'm going to get the listing. I better probably be thinking about doing my Avid right now too. Okay. So remember that attitude problem? Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So they're going to tell you where the signing room is. So you'll go all the way through. Almost invariably, the master bedroom is the last one. And it's the one they are the most uncomfortable with other people being in. So I try not to spend a lot of time in the primary. We don't call it master anymore, I guess. So in the primary bedroom, it's always, the garage is always the end game, but that nobody cares, right? And so I always find that when I show property, the husband goes to the husband goes to the garage first, and the wife goes to the kitchen first. I actually sold a property in Carmel Village, right off the 56, where the husband was a master chef, and so he had taken all of the cabinetry out of the kitchen and put it in the garage. There's a signal, right? So I cued in on that right away, and so that was it was an easy deal for me. So where's the signing room? You could end up in the kitchen. Okay. You could end up in the living room. You could end up in the dining room. I find a lot of my transactions occur in the kitchen. Okay. But let them sit first. Hello. Let them sit first. Why? Because you don't want to sit on somebody else's throne. If you sit in the wrong seat, if you sit in the grand master, and again, it could be any of the people that are there. It could be the husband, it could be the wife, it could be the partner, it could be the significant other, whatever. You sit in their seat, you are doomed. Okay, so I always let them sit first. I make a big production out of holding the chair. I'm kind of a chauvinist, from way back. So, that gives me an opportunity to kind of size the situation up to figure, whoever's got the throne, well, that's his chair over there. And it's like, okay, I got it. I'm not going anywhere near that. It also tells you who's in charge. All right. And so I want to know who's in charge. I want to know who the decision maker is. And sometimes, so for example, I know we stereotype things, but, the wife is really in charge, right? Because it's always, it's always the wife that buys it, the husband that sells it. And we talk in those terms. But frankly, the wife is the one usually calling the shots on selling the home. It's just the husband implements it. It just tends to be part of the psychology, forget, being politically correct, but part of the psychology of it is somebody's going to be the spokesperson for the group. And And so but that may not be the decision maker. Is everybody okay with that? All right. So the conversation, seller only cares about two things. And we're talking about the conversation now with the seller. So you need to be prepared for the discussion. It's going to come up. Okay. How much you gonna get me and how much you're going to charge me to get there. All right. That's all they care about. Okay. They don't care about how many houses you've sold or your realtor of the year or, they don't care about that stuff. Okay. Like I said, that first couple of 15 seconds is all you got. All right. So let's talk about how much you're going to get me. Let's go to that conversation. So people buy an emotion and they sell on fact. All right. And so that's just a truism. I don't think it has anything to do with, the wife buys it and the husband sells it, but whatever, it isn't what it is. So question, yeah, 100% correct. Yeah. Oh man, I tell you. Okay. But boy, when they go to sell the house, it's all about numbers, right? And that's when they come after us. It's like, I didn't do it. You bought the house. So I always get a kick out of that. So I want you to present your visuals. I want you to go through all the stuff that you have that you want to show them. This is your chance to do that, right? I also want you to present your rationale. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. I'm going to hit you with a couple of objections. And if you've got others, please let me know, because I love talking about this stuff and I love going on listing appointments. It's just, for me, it's the high point of my life. I don't get as much of a chance to do it anymore because now I travel a lot. But I love going on listing appointments. So present your rationale. This is why I do this. This is why I do that. This is what's been successful for me in the past. Remember, they don't sell and buy houses every day. You do, I hope, right? But they don't know, and they're really coming to you. So how frequently does a seller sell their home? 3, 5, 7 years? I mean, the numbers now with people digging in and not selling because of, the interest rates, they just say, I'm not going to sell it. I don't care. It's like Del Mar, my neighbors, if they can't double what they paid for the house last year, they're not going to sell it. It just is. And there's always somebody willing to pay the money. I've never seen so much cash in my career. The cash, I've got a transaction I'm assisting with in Coronado where, the top 5 buyers are all paying cash, and it's all like $500,000 more than what the asking price is. That's scary. There's a lot of cash out there. More than 38% of our market is paying cash. So the buyer that comes to you and says, what do you mean you countered us? We're paying cash. And it's like, yeah, I know, but you give us a good offer. So, and they're like, oh, well, what do we got to do? Well, you got to do this. Oh, okay. All right, I get it. So got to ask the seller, say, what would an appraiser say? All right. So remember, at the end of the day, most of your transactions will involve an appraisal. Okay. And so what is the appraiser going to say? And a lot of times the seller doesn't know what an appraiser takes into account when they're appraising a property. But listen, if you sell the house for $1 million, and I know that's probably entry-level housing now, you sell the house for $1 million, and the appraiser comes in at $800,000. Somebody's coming up with 200 grand, or this deal's going to have a problem. Right? I mean, and there's not enough commission in that for you to cough it up. So, at the end of the day, you don't want to be buying the house for the client anyway. So you tell the seller, you say, well, let's take a look. Here's how appraisers do their business. Okay. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a second. So what do they base their opinion on? And of course, they're going to base their opinion on sales. All right. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to break this down into how to explain the actives, the expireds, the pendings, and the solds. All right. But they're going to base it on sold comps. They might look at a pending listing, but only if they don't have enough information from the sold properties. And so, we're not getting the appraisals coming in for 10% more than the last sale anymore. These numbers are being systematized. So be realistic. Of all things, I've lost listings where I've gone in, I've said to the seller, I've said, hey, you know what? Here's how much this property's worth. And then they say, well, so-and-so says they can get me more money. Well, that's a term of art that we call in our business. It's actually illegal. It's called freezing out, right? Freezing out is where I get rid of all the other listing agents by telling the seller that the property's worth more money than it really is. And then I'll work the price reduction during the listing period. And so the Department of Real Estate says that might be fraudulent. But people do it, how you going to prove it? I don't know. And I've had it happen to me. I had a listing in Solana Beach where this other agent came in and said it was worth, I said, here's how much it's going to sell for. and they came in and the other agent said, this is how much I'm going to get for it. And then it ended up selling, and after the seller made 8 more payments, it sold for what I said it would sell for. Of course, I can't call them up and say, I told you so, because, I might be interfering with a contract they have with somebody else, but I have it happen all the time. So, but you got to be realistic. You got to be honest. A lot of times when I'm with the seller and the seller tells me somebody else is going to, get them more money for the property, I say to them, well, they can't really, it's only worth what it's worth. Here's the last sale. And so I tell you what, I make a deal. When I decided the fight isn't worth having anymore, I'll say to the seller, make a deal with me that the minute they start working the price reduction, that means that they deceived you at the time of the listing. You tell them you're canceling the listing, you call me and I'll list the property and we'll sell it. And the seller says, well, that's an interesting strategy. And I say, yeah, a lot of times I'd rather be the second agent in, because the first agent may end up sitting on the listing. If you're solid rock, I'm not going to move on your listing price on the property, then maybe you'll give me a chance to actually sell it. And I'm being honest with you today, and I'll be honest with you tomorrow. Okay, so be realistic with the seller when it comes to pricing. Show them the data. Have them sign off on it. Again, it could be that RPR, it could be the cloud CMA, it could be the CMA from the MLS. And I get this, the seller prices the property, and I get this all the time. And so some of you on this call today are serious veterans, good real estate agents, and the seller thinks they price the property. Well, they sure do, but it's the buyer that determines what it's going to sell for, right? So, how many times have I taken a listing where I told the seller, you're out of here. I've had one listing in my career where the seller told me I was high. Sure enough, we priced it low because I follow the instructions of the seller. All these offers come in. I mean, crazy offers come in. And then we ultimately end up closing the deal for the price I said it was going to sell for, which was higher than what they thought it would sell for. So I was okay being right, but at the same time, be sincere, be truthful, tell them the truth. All right. The buyer ultimately is the one that determines the sales price of the property. Okay. So do your list price versus sales price narrative. You can actually go into the MLS, look up other listings if you have a heavy hitter in the neighborhood, for example, look up their sales in their what sales that they're doing in the area. So, for example, I go up into my MLS and I can search in my MLS for other agents' production, right? I mean, I think I've got it down here. Yeah, here we go. Listing or selling agent. I can type in their number or their name, and it'll tell me all their transactions. It'll tell me, how much, what their sales price, the list price narrative was all about. If they list all their properties for $1 million, but they sell them all for 900, then, that's quite a spread. That's 10%. And mine come in usually around, 97, 98%. And so I'm going to use that as a marketing tool without naming names. That's clearly not what I'm going to do. I don't want to put anybody else on the spot, and I don't need to make, my daddy always told me, he said, you don't make yourself better by putting other people down. So I'm never going to do that. But I sometimes might say things that'll leave doubt. Right. Okay. So that being said, I'm going to have to hurry it along here. So pricing strategies. So let's take a look. Buyers look in increments of $50,000. They just do. Folks, in our price point, my first sale was $18,000 double wide. So, that was my first sale back in the 70s. Okay. And so we're not doing that today. I mean, you can't really get much anything under $1 million. And so they're going to be looking in 50s when they come in. And I tell the seller this, I say, they come in the office, they say, I'm looking up to $1 million, or I'm looking up to $1,050,000 or $1,001,000, something like that. But they're going to give me that number. It's almost always going to be a round number. Not I can spend up to $1,136,573. They're not going to say that, right? But I tell the seller, I say, this is what they're going to be doing. They're going to be looking at increments of 50. And so if you want to sell the house, so your property, you want $1,000,001 for the house, but I'm telling you, maybe $999 is a better price because you're more likely you'll hit more of the market, those people that wouldn't have otherwise have seen it if you priced it at $1,000,001. Okay, because then my $999 buyer won't see it because they've only gone up to $1 million, so they won't see your $1,000,001. So you need to price it accordingly. So this is how buyers look for property. So what happens when and some of you are going to love this. So, excuse me. What happens when you, the seller's agent, allow the seller to price the property too high? Okay, well, you sit. And I tell the seller this, okay, I'm not shy about it. I say, you price it too high, we're going to sit. Okay, and then what? Then we're gonna have to start working the reduction. You're probably statistically, you're probably gonna end up selling it for less money than you could have gotten if you just price it right when you first listed it. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Okay, you price it and you wait for them. So I always say, and you wait for the market to come to you. So if we believe that the market is appreciating, pricing it up there, eventually the market will get to you. It may take a year or two. How many more payments do you want to make? That kind of thing. But you can see that mouse. Okay. And so anyway, you price it too high, you sit, you wait for the market to come to you. You price it low, you create your own market. And again, I'm not suggesting that you way underprice it low, but a lot of times it's hard to tell what's the real value for this property. I sat on the phone with a broker this morning. We went around about pricing the property, and then did I underprice it? I had like 16 offers on it. Did you underprice it? I don't know. I think that there was a lot of pent up demand for that property, and I think you can defend the fact that you weren't playing any games with anybody when you listed it. But the fact of the matter is, when you price it low, you're going to create your own market. Okay, so discuss other properties in the marketplace. And so I love this part. All right, so active. So I want to talk to you about the active listings, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Okay, so my active listings, these are your current competition. Okay, because I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. What column do you want to be in? All right, so active listings, here's how much people are currently asking for here's how much your neighbors are currently asking for their property. Okay, pending listing, this is the price that it took to get an offer, because the seller sees that price and they realize, which one's the highest one would you expect, right? Probably the expired listing. Okay, but when we'll talk about my strategy when I discuss that, but pending is the price it took to get the offer. That's not what it's going to ultimately sell for. All right, and so what about my expired? That's the price that was just too high and didn't sell the property. Okay, so you don't want to be in that, right? Because then you're just going to go, okay, so we're just doing this for what reason? Nothing, none at all. We don't plan to sell the house. We just want to put it in this list. Okay, and then I have my sold, and my sold is what the ready, willing, and able buyer was willing to pay, okay, for the property. And so when I put them all together, I ask the seller, I say, which column do you want to be in, or which row do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the active? Do you want to sit? Do you want to be in the pending? Yeah. Do you want to be in the expired? No, I don't want to be in the expired. I'm not interested. Call me later, right? When you're ready to be reasonable. Or you want to be in the sold. And I think all of us would say we want to be in the sold. We want to be in the price that it took to sell the property. That is the most important thing to us. Okay, so we want to sell the property. Listen, I may have great marketing, but at the end of the day, if you overprice the property, that marketing is going to be overcome by your pricing. Okay, pricing is the most important thing. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what column do you want to be in? Okay, and that's my strategy when I talk to the seller. So now it's time to close on the price. So you got to know your scripts. All right. Again, how much you're going to get me? Seller only cares about two things: how much you're going to get me, how much you can charge me to get there. So let's talk about how much you can charge me to get there. Don't be afraid of the question, folks. It's coming. All right. They don't know. They really, literally, they're going to ask it. They don't know what they think that's what they're supposed to do. They don't know what else to do. Right. I mean, I guess we need to ask you about your commissions, right? It's like, nah, not a problem at all. I'm giving you a break. I'm listing it for 10%. Right. And they're like, huh? And it's like, well, I'm not going to discuss commission. The law says that commissions are negotiable by law. Look, it says right here in the listing agreement, commissions are negotiable at law. And so, but that doesn't say down. Right. And so, so sometimes they look at me, they go, I'm not sure if he's serious about this or not. And so then, but I move on to the way I want to present the message to them. Okay. So most times it's really just a question. Remember that one where the couple was in the kitchen and she says, I guess we need to ask you about your rate. And it's like, it was just a question. They didn't know, don't take it personally. They didn't know what else to do. Right. They thought that was what they were supposed to do. They thought that was what they're supposed to ask. It may just be a question. I talk to Linda a lot of times. She gets angry because I ask a lot of questions. I'm not allowed to talk to her in the morning, by the way. If she's having her coffee or we're having breakfast, I'm not allowed to talk to her while she's eating. We have rules, apparently, so I just stopped feeding her. But anyway, I'm not allowed to talk to her when she's eating. But at the end of the day, it could just be a question. And so sometimes I'll ask a question and she'll get very defensive about it. And it's like, it's just a question. And it's like, well, then stop asking questions. Okay. All right. I get it. Okay. All right. So present your value proposition. Here's what I bring to the table. Don't be, again, don't cut other people down to make yourself look good. It doesn't work. It's going to backfire every time. present your value. What is it you're bringing to the table? So one of the assignments I give my lawyers in the class is I have them look up the buyer representation agreement, right? I give them a copy of it and I say, this is, I want you to take paragraph number, was it 5? I think it's 5. The broker's obligations and duties. Take that paragraph, and so in the document itself, it's in a word wrap so it'll fit, but I have them write it out. They're not allowed to copy paste. We have software that checks them for plagiarism and stuff like that. So, I have them type it out. And so I have them type it out in with bullet points. So they're not allowed to do the word wrap. They literally have to type it out, put a bullet point in front of each one. So now we're stacking it. Okay. Now you'll find that that's like a page and a half. Okay, why do I have them do that? And then they'll frequently ask me that question. Why do you have us do that? That's kind of like a stupid thing to do. It's like, no, I just want you to do it. And so they go ahead and they do it. So I have, for 25 years now, I've got these files full of lawyers writing these things out. And then they come back to me later and they go, wow, we had no idea that you did all those things. So I'm really kind of paving the ground for you and I as the real estate agent that, that the attorneys appreciate what we do, because prior to that, all we were was a target. And so I give them the value proposition. These are the things that I'm going to do. So your buyer representation agreement includes a paragraph that you have, and so does your listing agreement. These are the things I'm going to do for you. So remember, in the beginning of our conversation, we talked about the 21 things I'm going to do for you. It's that same kind of principle. And I'll frequently put that in front of the client is separate from everything else. And I'll say, look, I just want you to see this, and I'm willing to commit to it. And I sign it and I hand it to them. Okay. And they go, wow, well, that's pretty powerful. Okay. And then when I pull out the agreement, whether it's the listing agreement or the buyer representation agreement, those are both listing agreements, right? Boom, there it is. And so, but they'll miss it. If you don't call attention to it, then all they see is commissions and all this other stuff. And so, listen, I'm going to get paid. I'm not interested and a big agent in Del Mar made a comment many years ago. He says, earn your commission, don't give it away. I was in a meeting with the broker for the rock people many years. I'm being very careful not to mention names, but anyway, many years ago, he had this great big panel up there and heavy hitting people. I mean, big, still to this day, the same big people. And so here's how we get our commissions. It's the whole conversation on commissions for the brokerage. I wrote down everything. I wrote it all down. I was the only one writing everything down. I thought, wow, what a great thing. This is back in '93. I thought what a great opportunity to learn all these things from these heavy hitting agents on how they earn their commission. And so I still have that document to this day. And I do share it at the university, but more for demonstrative purposes than anything else. But I think it's important. You need to know that you do bring stuff to the table. It's important to know that. Okay. All right. Distinguish yourself from the rest of the pack. All right. So here are the things that I'm going to do. Not here are the things I'm going to do, but they don't do. I don't do that. Here are the things that I'm going to do. Okay. All right. Present your top 10 things that I'm going to do for you, whatever, 10, 21, whatever, top 10 things that I'm going to do for you. Okay. But have it in writing. Have it in front of them, okay? So something you can hand them, something you can sign in front of them, make a big production out of it, right? Take notes from remember your listing appointment when you're walking through the listing appointment with them and they were telling you things and you're writing things down. So these are the things that I'm going to do. These are the things I'm not going to do. Not I do this and they don't do that. Don't get into that, okay? You don't need that, right? All right, prepare for the objections. They're going to have them. So let's talk about that. So let's take a look. I always say revisit our scripts, right? So we have scripts for all this stuff. You can Google half of this. So-and-so will charge me for less. One of my favorite conversations. And my response to that is always, and they probably should. And of course, the seller's sitting there going, well, wait a minute, I want to really answer that question. And I said, well, they have to compete with me based on my price, which is my commission, because they can't compete with me based on my service. And so you haven't had an opportunity to look at what that looks like yet. But, I always do the little circle diagram with the, half the money goes to the seller's broker, half the money goes to the buyer's broker, and then half of that money goes to my broker, and then I get the other half. And on the other half, I cut through. They have some really great charts on the pie charts on this. I get 33% of that goes to taxes, so I'm left with 2/3 of this huge picture, and then so here's my marketing budget. So you're asking me to cut my marketing budget. right? Does that make sense? I don't think it's a good idea, right? I got to put shoes on my kids' feet. That's over this last column. I got to make the car payment. I got to make the house payment, stuff like that. But you're asking me to cut the marketing budget, and I don't think you want me to do that. I think you want me to try to get you as much as I possibly can for your house. And so I use that little pie chart thing. I just think it's great, right? But remember the old saying, and this is important. I always say this to them when they hit me up with the commission split, commission ectomy, we call it, right? You get what you, and I don't say anything else. Stop talking. You get what you pay for. They will offer pay for. Okay, let them complete it. Why? Because then they own it. And so, we all have those little sayings. We really should be writing these things down and taking those sayings and just saying, I'm going to use that from now on because I'm going to let the client talk me into it. All my clients close me. I mean, I'm a terrible closer, right? They all close me. They just decide, I really like this guy. I'm going to work with this guy, right? And so they say, when can we write the offer? I'm like, oops, when do we sign the buyer representation agreement? Whoops, they close me every time. They all do. Okay, so and by the way, that's in multiple states. So I hear that the commission, I put commission in here because I wanted to be clear what it was. I hear that the commission market is at X. So how much are people charging, right? And so your response is, how do you know that? Right? Okay. You got to go up to 30,000 feet for a second. How do they know how much is being charged? Well, because somebody showed them an MLS printout, right? They showed, but what do they have? When they have the MLS printout, what do they have? So, some of you here know what I'm talking about. When you show them the MLS printout, you're seeing how much they're paying the seller's agent, right? I'm sorry, the buyer's agent. You don't know how much they're taking commission themselves. I have done more than one deal in the last couple of months where the other agent thought they were going to get paid more than I was. And I ended up having the seller pay me more money and they ended up taking the hit. So, at the end of the day, how did you know that? Well, somebody showed me the listing, showed me an MLS printout, a full printout. It's a violation of our rules to do that. Okay. And so I say it is a violation of our MLS rules to share agent printouts with non-subscribers. That's why I'm showing you client handouts. Now, folks, I know I'm giving you a lot of stuff in this 2-hour period of time, but again, you'll have the webinar available to you and I'll send you the ancillary materials if you want them. But it is a violation of our rules to share agent printouts with non-subscribers. And so if they're going to break the rules now, and then I just kind of stop. And why? Because they're thinking, well, if they're going to break the rules now, they're going to break the rules later too. They're going to throw me under the bus for something. Okay. So I always have that conversation with them. Okay. So nothing replaces the boots on the ground realtor in the community. And I always say that because, we're going to talk about what do they know and what they don't know here in just a second. So again, commission, here's another, you're only seeing what the seller's agent is paying the buyer's agent. You're not seeing the entire commission, right? It is rarely half, folks, right? It's rarely half. I'm aware of agents that take their listings at 10%, and the buyer's agent who thinks they died and gone to heaven at 3% doesn't realize, that the other agent's getting 7%. So, we don't know what that looks like. And I know I get the reverse of that too, where agents supposedly are taking commissions less for themselves, although I find that to be a rarity in this market, but all right. There is no requirement that the seller's agent split the commission, and I tell the seller this equally with the buyer's agent. I see a lot of listing agreements in the course of my professional practice where, it was definitely not split 50-50. Okay. So it is not necessarily split equally. So-and-so has a lot of listings. Your response, I promised you personal service. Right. And so would you rather work with the real estate professional that you hired, or maybe get calls on Monday from an assistant making excuses for why your house hasn't sold? So I just tell them, because that's my experience in the industry, is that a lot of the people that I've got 85 listings. Well, I'm feeling kind of left out. If I'm number 86, then how do I know I'm going to get any kind of personal service? And so, so I bring it out. I say, this could be what's going to happen to you. And I know for a fact it is, but I don't know a lot of, agents that have 86 listings that are calling their seller every Monday or whatever, telling them what's going on. And so, you got me. I said, I don't carry a lot of listings. I carry one. That's you. And so you'll get 100% of my attention. Okay. All right. So pricing is really important, by the way. You want to make sure you also are able to sell that property. But I think I told a story a couple of weeks ago when I lived in a nice community that I bought a home, my first home, and it was down towards the bottom of a grade. And so, what do I do? I list the guy's house across the street from me. And of course, that can be good, it can be bad, but at least I'm looking at my sign in the yard every day, right? But the guy said, his name was Johnson, believe it or not. As I'm trying to think of what their names were, but I had another listing at the same time owned by a Johnson family. But anyway, so here's the sign. I'm looking at my sign every day. Well, when I take the listing, the seller says I want $99,000 for it. This goes back a long time. And I said, okay, well, that's too high. It's a $96,000 listing. And he says, that's okay. We're not in a hurry. So don't worry about it. Take your time, right? So how many of you have had this experience? So again, it's across the street from my house. So, the next day I get a phone call from the seller saying, how come you haven't shown my house? And I said, I told you you're over, that's a big spread, $96,000 to $99,000. I mean, think about it, right? And I told him, I said, you're overpriced. And I said, you're not going to get a lot of showings. So he calls me up, how come you haven't shown my house? And then the next day he calls me up, how come nobody from your office has shown my house? And then the next day, how come you haven't brought me any offers? And so, you get this conversation, it's like, well, what am I, an idiot? Why did I take this listing? And I got to look at the sign every day. I'd rather look at somebody else's sign, let them be abused. It got so bad that, literally I would come home at night and I would come home and I would turn the car off. This was back when you could turn your car off and still have control of the vehicle. And so I would come down, the street and then I would make a quick left and hit the little curb and go up. I had the garage door up and, automatic clicker, one of the first automatic clickers out there. And I'd coast into the garage and I would put the door down. Why? Because I knew the minute, and I wouldn't turn the lights on in the house, I would, curtains on everything. So you couldn't see I was home because I knew he was going to call me up and ask me how come I hadn't sold his house. I took the light bulb. Is this crazy? I took the light bulb out of the garage door opener. All right. Just so the light bulb wouldn't go off. So you wouldn't see the light bulb. And so, it was amazing. I had that listing for months and finally I sold it. But oh God, I thought to myself, I'm going to make sure that I'm in control of the listing next time. And I want to be sure that the right, Merowit, right? So I took a bulb out of the garage door opener. God, it was a nightmare. I mean, it's like, oh God, do I want to keep looking at my sign? So anyway, I owned that property for a long time, but I did sell his house to somebody else, but it was just a disaster. So be careful what you wish for. So know your scripts. When we're dealing, actually, did I finish the story? Yeah. So know your scripts. When you're dealing with a seller, we refer to the structure as a house. Okay, why? Because I want to desensitize them from the sale, right? And we're selling the house, right? But if we start calling it a home, and they start, I had a guy call me on the phone. He sold his house up in Malibu, and this is back in like '88 or '89. And he says, he sells the house for like $4 million. And he calls me on the phone. He says, I'm suing everybody. And I go, what's up? I wasn't involved in the sale. I would have loved to have been. He says, the buyer bought the house. I asked him, I said, did it close? And he says, yeah. And I said, okay, it's not your house anymore. The buyer leveled the house. $4 million house, and the buyer levels the house. Now, I know we all know today, we see this all the time, right? But this was like an unheard of thing for somebody to come in and level a $4 million purchase, telling me that the land is worth $4 million. And so they literally leveled the house. And I said, who are you going to sue? He said, I'm going to sue the buyer. I said, why? He says, I raised my kids in that house. I said, they don't care. And you don't own the house anymore. You should have made it a condition that they're not allowed to level the house. I mean, what the heck, right? So we want to desensitize them from selling the home. But the same thing holds true when I'm dealing with my buyer. Now, when I'm dealing with my buyer, we're looking for a home. Okay, we're not looking for a house, all right? Because a house is just a physical structure. A home is where the heart is, if you follow my drift. So I want to desensitize my seller, but I want to sensitize my buyer, all right? So sensitizing them for the purchase that they're about to make, okay? So we want to watch our language. We want to watch how we talk with people. And I've always found in my experience, and again, for those of you who knew my former business partner, she was very shy when I met her, very quiet. But she learned how to ask questions and then stop talking. Well, really, she wasn't really listening to you. She was really trying to think of what the next question was she was going to ask, but she was a master. I mean, she got so good. It was amazing how many transactions we were doing every year. And only because she was just really good at knowing when to stop talking. And so, be prepared for that. You got to know when to stop. So I always say to the seller, what are the most important things that you're looking for in a real estate professional? Now we're really getting into it here. And so were you aware that not all real estate agents are realtors? That is a blow to the solar plexus, right? That's the one where they go, huh? It's like, I thought you were all alike, right? And you go, no, we're not all alike. And then I always say, let's take a look. You should write this down. Let's take a look at a standard form that realtors use in our industry to explain the difference between a realtor and just a licensee. Okay, and that's going to be this form here. Some of us here may today have never heard of this. I remember when we came out with this form probably 20 years ago now, and it's the first form that I always sign in front of the client. So you can see by looking at the form. Let me take you to the form. Let me do that because I want to show you what it looks like. All right, so here we go. So we're going to go into, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. I hate it when it does that. Okay, hang on a second. I know screen sharing has stopped. Where's my, here it is. So we're going to go back into the, it's, you know, unfortunately for all of us, it signs us out after a period of time. I'm in the Zip Forms program all day. I mean, I've a lot of different Zip Forms programs. And so I'm in there all day long, but boy, even me, I hate that timeout feature. I'm not even sure how long it is. I think it's 20 minutes, but anyway, okay. So let's go back in here. I'm going to show you, whoops, you can't see it. Zoom, where's my Zoom button? Here it is. Okay. All right. So let's take a look. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, this is a treat. Okay. So this is, here's Zip Forms. So I'm going to take you to our template. All right. And here's the template. So what am I going to do? I want to go to the seller listing template. So this is my seller listing template effective June of 2023. Okay. So updated all the changes and all that kind of stuff. And so what am I going to do? I want to get my RA. So I'm going to type in RA. And it's going to pull up my realtor acknowledgement form. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I already pulled all these things up. So, well, I'm here. So this is my template. I wanted you to see the template. So let's take a look. Here's the RA form. So the RA form is for realtor use only. This is page 1. Now, people look at me when I'm done talking about this form, you all are going to go, that's the simplest thing I ever heard of. Okay. Well, so this is page 1. This is the entire page 1. So this is for realtor use only. Used by a non-realtor is in violation of the B&P code. I don't know why they would use it anyway, but it makes a good story. 10177, that's a bucket list for the Department of Real Estate. You know, that's, you know, failure to supervise is in there, among other things. Okay. Penalties may result in violators' real estate license being suspended or revoked or denied issuance for new applicants. And so I have this conversation with the seller. They're looking at me and they're going, I thought you guys were all alike. It's kind of like Kleenex and tissue, right? No, we're not all alike. Realtors. So there are, I tell them, I say there are 435,000 real estate licensees in the state of California, right? Of those, less than 200,000 of them are realtor members. Now that's a stunning blow because the seller all this time thought we were all alike. And so I always say to them, I say, I subscribe to a written code of ethics. I don't know what they do. Right. And so I didn't say anything disparaging about the other agents that the seller's been talking with, but now they're starting to wonder if they're realtors, right? Because realtor members subscribe to a code of ethics. And I go down to page 2, and this is a pretty good explanation. You should read it, certainly so you don't make comments inconsistent with it. But, you know, this explains a lot of stuff, the code of ethics. There's the link to it. Here's my name. And so, you know, what I do with this is I pull this form up. And I'm going to, you can see that it's crime to call yourself a realtor when you're not, right? And wait, they say, I've never seen that form before. No one has ever shown it to me. I can guarantee you that in almost every single conversation that nobody has ever, because most people don't even know it exists. Right. So I always have, that's the very first form that I sign in front of the client on a listing appointment, on a buyer representation appointment, whatever. It's always going to be the very first form. So, but the seller's saying to me, I've never seen that form before. How come nobody ever showed it to me? Well, I don't know what to tell you. Right. I don't know. You know, so, okay. So I know you're a realtor, obviously. Then who were all these other people that were in here? And I don't say that they weren't realtors, right? But you can't call yourself a realtor unless you actually are one. Okay, so I keep it simple, and now I've started that doubt. So this is the first form. This is the one right underneath my listing input sheet. Everybody good? Everybody with me? I know not everyone wants you to know that there's a difference. Okay, again, I haven't said anything bad about anybody. I'm not going to do that. But I am saying that not everybody wants you to know that that some people pay, association dues. They're held to a higher standard. You know, I'm actually called out on, code of ethics if there's an issue. Of course, I testify to code of ethics, but at the end of the day, Not everybody wants you to know there's a difference between the two. Okay. And so is that a good closer? I mean, I'm gonna sign it in front of them, right? So right here, but there is a difference between having a real estate license and abiding by a written code of ethics. I don't know what that is. Sign it in front of them, give them a copy. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I got style. If nothing else, I got style. So, I signed it in front of them. Again, I'm a showman, right? So, my birthday, same day as Bob Hope and John Kennedy. So, one was a philanderer, one was a philanthropist, that kind of thing. So, but I'm going to put on a good show, and, I'm not shy about it either. So, I have Car open on my computer right now, and I'm looking for this form. Good for you. I am telling you, to the end of days, folks, you need to be here. I'll show you where it is. Y'all need to be using this form. Okay. So you're going to go over here, see where it says all forms. You're going to go over here to all forms. You're going to click on that. I'm going to show you some other forms here in a minute, but I'm going to go back to this here, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to type in RA, and it's going to give me all the forms with RA in it. And I happen to know it's called the Realtor Acknowledgement Form. There it is. And that's how I found it. Okay. I've been using it for decades, since we came out with it, I think in the early 2000s, because we were trying to differentiate. We were trying to help people, realtors, understand the difference, why they're in such a more powerful position than others are. This is all in yourcar.org. Yes. So your zip forms program. So I don't know what way you're going about to get there, but it's in your zip forms program. Again, I'll send you my template, and you can I'd be happy to do that. And I normally save that for the class on Tuesday. So let's see here. Will I see the zip form edition, zip form plus? If you're using zip form plus, then go up to your browser, type in zipformplus.com. If that's the way you're logging in. Some people log in by going to sdar.com. Again, if you do it that way, let's see if I can show you. Where is it here? So when I go into SDAR, I can click on right here where it says Zip Form Plus. That's another way to do it. If it doesn't take you to your program, call membership and have them, make it point to the right place. Ask for Charles. He's a Superman. I really love Charles, but make it go to where it needs to go so you can get there really easily. Some people just go to car.org. And I have too many. I'm getting to where I have too many windows open. Let me see. Do I have? Yeah, here's car.org. And so I'm going to click on the refresh button, and I'm going to see right here, this is the home page. I'm going to click on Realtor Secure Edition, and then it's going to pop up my zip forms right there. Access now. Everybody good? Okay. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. I want this to be easy for you. So that's my Realtor Acknowledgement Form. I love it. It's the best closer I've got. I mean, it's just literally, once I've done that, the rest of the meeting, their focus is half on me, half on, what was that form again? And so that's why I like bringing that up. And by the way, I signed it, I handed it to them, right? I don't need a copy for them, right? Because they don't sign it. I'm the only one who signs it. So that's the first form that you're ever going to sign in front of them. Okay. All right. Again, this is probably my best closer. All right. So only you sign it. They don't. See, and I always say, see, look, no blood. And I always say that, and I'm cracking up, right? I say, look, we're not, no bleeding here, right? Why? Because we're going to be signing a lot of things today, and I want you to know that nobody gets hurt. And I say this in every conversation. I mean, God, I'm hoping that it's not the same people that I just had the appointment with the day before. They're going to say, you said that yesterday. And so it's like, no, I don't do that, right? I'm not going to see these people again for 3 to 5 years, and they're not going to remember that conversation. But anyway, look, we're going to sign that nobody gets hurt. Okay. It's easy. Okay. That's what we're going to do today. And then I'm going to change the focus of everything. And this is the power pivoting power position. I'm going to show them disclosures. I'm going to start off with the big daddy of all of them, and that is the CAR Form AD, and that's my disclosure regarding real estate agency relationships. And so I know I pulled all these forms up. Yep, I did. So there's my Realtor Acknowledgement Form that I told you. Notice our logo's in the corner. I don't know why it's still there, but they do that for us. I've got other forms. But let me take you over to the disclosures. This is my agency disclosure form. And I'm always going to bring this up. And why? Because again, I'm kind of checking out the turf right now to decide whether or not they're comfortable enough to start signing permanent agreements with me. And this again is an agency disclosure form. So I always tell them, and I'm going to show you right here. So I always say California law requires, okay, not legal advice, law requires, and you can say Civil Code 2079 if you want to, that I disclose the concept of agency before we do anything else. The law requires this, folks, and I'm dead serious about this. I mean, this is a license losing opportunity. The Department of Real Estate says you must disclose the concept of agency prior to committing conduct that constitutes agency. So clearly before you write an offer, clearly before you take a listing, clearly before you do a buyer representation agreement, you must disclose the concept of agency. And again, I do trial work on this, so please trust me on this. So I say to them, this is not a contract. Okay, this is merely a disclosure. All right. And so again, I'm looking at them. Are they getting ready to sign things? Am I getting any pushback on a disclosure? Right. You see what I'm saying? So, I'm kind of gauging it. I'm going for it though, right? Because I don't have all day, right? I'm going to spend time with them, but I need to get my stuff done. And again, I want the whole package done. And this is if I'm doing it in person. And again, if I'm not doing it in person, then I'm doing it on the internet. I always tell them this is not a 5-minute appointment. This is not going to happen, okay? Unless they've done 22 transactions with me, okay? All right, we're going to do a lot of these today. And I tell them that, right? And so now they're gearing up for it. They're going, okay, fine, we're going to do all these things today. But again, I've been gauging their participation at this point as to whether or not they, do we love each other? If we don't love each other, I'm not doing this deal, right? Because if we don't love each other, then that means it's just going to be a headbutt all the way through the transaction. Some of you know what I'm talking about, right? So right after I do the agency disclosure, now I'm going to start doing the warnings. I'm not going to pull all these up, but do your, we're not going to have time. But your cyber crimes advisory, absolutely. Your wire fraud advisory, absolutely. Local area disclosures. It's the poster child of the San Diego Association of Realtors. I walk into meetings all over the country. They've got our LAD up there on the board as what local associations should be providing to their agents, right? And so statewide buyer and seller advisory. I'm doing all my advisories. Market conditions, clearly, I've had enough trial work, folks. In the market conditions advisory is information that you need for your defense when the client says you said something else, but then they signed this document. And so that's why I say read it, because you don't want to make statements that contradict it. But it says a lot about the writing non-contingent offers, removing appraisal contingencies, things like that, water conserving plumbing fixtures, environmental hazards disclosures, fair housing and discrimination advisories, things like that. All right, so I'm going to do all these things. Why? Because remember, I came in with a stack. On the very top was my listing input sheet. Then there's my RA. Then there's my AD. And as we're going through these, I've got all my warnings in there. Yeah, I'm killing trees, right? But, I'm making a point. And part of it is the show. So be prepared, right? So present them one at a time. Now, I know you'll say, well, you'll be there all night. Well, you might have to be there all night, right? It's just going to depend how many questions they ask. So, but as I go through it, none of these forms are life-threatening, right? None of these forms are anything more than a disclosure, are they? I just want to tell them what's going on in the world of real estate. Nobody is spending this time with them. Nobody sits down with them and goes over these things, right? What do? They go back to the office, they have the TC send the file to them, and that's just the beginning of I'm never going to talk to you again. And that's the part that that separates you from these other people, is that you want to talk to the client. And so this is how I do my presentation. This is it. I do them in this order. Be prepared, present them one at a time, do your disclosures, right? So we had our warnings. So I've got my statutory disclosures versus my contractual disclosures. I always have the statutory disclosures done first. So when I go through the TDS with somebody, that's an event, right? I mean, I don't know how you're going to do a transfer disclosure statement conversation with somebody that isn't going to be at least 20 minutes, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we got to be very careful about how we fill this form out. Here it is right here. You notice up here at the top, it's changed. Notice the revision date. I always make sure I use the current forms. That way we have the user protection agreement, and then we're going to fill it out. Here's today's date. Here's all this stuff. And we're going to fill this out. But in my explanation, so this, by the way, is almost a 3-hour class with the attorneys, but it's the law. It's Civil Code 1102.3. So do your statutory disclosures. So you got your TDS, you've got your NHD. I didn't even bring in the NHD. By the way, there's no NHD form in the library anymore. We took it out of the library. And the reason that we did that was because nobody was using it. And because we've realized that most real estate agents are being coached by their brokers to, have a report done by a third party that has insurance, hopefully. But you want to make sure whatever that company is that you're going to bat for provides all the disclosures that you need. So I know some of them don't provide the environmental hazards disclosure booklet, which is required by law. It's not required by law of the NHD companies, but only some of them actually do it. And that's the ones that we use are the ones that actually have all the forms in it. They disclose the gnat catchers and the red-legged tree frogs and all that kind of stuff. So be aware, make sure that whatever company you're suggesting that people use, and I always refer three, we just have links on our approved vendor list and they can click on the links. But the one I like is always on the first level, right? So that's the way I'm going to do that. Fire hardening, defensible space advisory, that's a tricky one. That's another one that's going to take a little while to sit in front of. Y'all see what I'm saying? This is not a 5-minute appointment, but I'm going to sit down and I'm going to explain everything to them. I want to go line by line, and I'm not leaving until I leave with all of this stuff. So it's a lot like being a used car salesman, right? In used car sales, we try to get you into the box. The into the box means we get you into the office, sitting down in a room, and we just make it so you can't leave until you buy a car, right? Well, it's kind of, excuse me, same principles here. I'm not leaving until we do all this stuff. So far, none of this is committing them to me, is it? Right? So nowhere in here, right? What do they want to talk about? They want to talk about the listing agreement, right? Why? Well, how much you're going to get, or how much you're going to get me, and how much you can charge me to get there. It's the only two things they care about. So I don't want to give that to them up front. I give it to them at the end. It's the very last form. All right. So Melrose disclosures, again, these are in I order the property ID, if that's the company you use, I order that at the time prior to the listing appointment. I show up with it at the listing appointment. So you can usually get one of those within a couple of hours. And I show up at the appointment. I need to have all the statutory disclosures anyway. And I explain this to the seller. When your buyer comes in, I want to make sure that we have all the disclosures filled out, not 2 weeks from now, but when the buyer comes in, I want to give all those disclosures over to the buyer prior to contract, because then they lose their 3-day right of rescission. So if I go back over here to my TDS, for those of you that haven't been to my TDS class, which I gave last Tuesday, but it says right here, right? If delivery occurs after the signing of the offer to purchase, then you've got a 3-day right to rescind. Right here, at least 3 days, could be 5 days, depending on how you got it. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if we mail it to them, they've got 5 days. If we hand it to them, they've got 3 days. And so be aware that I don't want the buyer to have a wiggle room to get out of the property. And the one listing I took up in Lake Forest, we had all of the disclosures signed at the time of the appointment, 3.5-hour appointment. But then the buyer came in, we sent all the disclosures over with the counter offer, and the buyer says, well, that's a pretty big package. Never seen one that before. And so we said, yeah, but you don't have, I told the agent, I didn't tell the buyer, that, we've given you all the disclosures. There's nothing else left. And you know what? The buyer agreed. The buyer said, I don't need 30 days. Let's just do this in 13 days. And so, like I said in a previous webinar, I said, hey, I bought the RV, I bought the boat, I'm having a ball. But, these are the things that I know what the forms say, and I use them to my advantage. And then with the seller, I'm clearly educated. And again, that TDS, SPQ, SPQA, and the Avid was a presentation I think I did Tuesday morning. So I'll load it up onto you should watch it, because we killed it. I mean, we just literally went through all 4 of those documents, and you're about as expert as we need it to be. Okay. So do your disclosures. What about my contractual disclosures? So, I think you need to show them a seller property questionnaire, of course, right? Because seller property questionnaire is a great document. It actually came out of the San Diego Association of Realtors. Where did it go? Seller, that's not it. Okay. I still have a bunch of stuff to show you, but we're not going to go crazy. Okay. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on my SPQ. So the SPQ came out of San Diego, what's called the SAD form. It was called the Seller's Additional Disclosures, and CAR liked it so much they decided to create their own. And frankly, I think they did a great job. Right. But then we came back, and I'll show you in a minute the SPQA. And that's because I have the seller. Look, we're going to be a while. Look at this. Look at all the stuff you've got to do. And this is only 4 pages. Okay. So I have them check all these boxes, but I really need to. And so even the district manager for the Department of Real Estate says you need to advise and counsel. You need to sit down with your client and go over this with them. So I don't want any blank spaces. I had a seller once who missed a spot, and then I didn't catch it, my fault. It went to the buyer's agent. Buyer's agent sent back a thing saying, what's the answer to number K? And so I went, oops. And so we had the seller amend the whole thing, did the whole thing all over again, sent him a new one. 2 years and 9 months later, the seller gets sued by the buyer who claimed that the seller was trying to deceive them by not giving them a completed SPQ. Does that make any sense? You know, at the end of the day, the seller destroyed them in trial. But you know, do we need this aggravation? And then it turned out that the buyer, of course, was a real estate agent from New York, and this is the way we do things in New York. And the judge says, well, this is not the way we do things in California. So in California, you disclose everything. We're going to tell you everything, and here it is, all in writing, the whole thing. So be very well aware that form is a great form. You should not be doing a transaction without it. It is a contractual form. It is in the contract. The FIRPTA. Again, this isn't a forms class, and I'm going to run out of time. But the FIRPTA, you need to have that signed by the seller. The QS form, perhaps with it, from the escrow company. The seller listing information checklist. They've updated the SLIC form, and I like a SLIC form. I really do. So let's do that. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to type in SLIC. So I don't know where it got the name. Obviously, seller listing information checklist. But I have the seller fill this out. I mean, think about this for a second. It's going to ask them all this information. How's title held? You know, whose signature is required to sell? These are all questions I have asked them just from the legal perspective of things where I come from. But these are questions that, you know, have all of the owners sign the listing agreement? Are there anybody we're missing here? Anybody else that has an interest in the property? These are things I've already told you in this conversation, right? Is there a probate pending? How about my loan obligations? How about, is there a notice of default against the property, right? So again, Civil Code 1695 says it's a crime to write an offer on a property where it's a single family, 1 to 4. The owner is living in the property. The buyer is not going to live in the property, and there's an NOD filed against the property. So that's a nasty civil code. It was put into effect in 1978. And it's still on the books today. And so I can tell you, divorce attorneys call me all the time. I'm sorry, marital restructuring attorneys call me all the time. What was that civil code again? Right? Because that's the one that's going to get you every single time. So this is a great place to find out that whether, you know, clearly, you know, if the seller's living in the place, but you don't know if your buyer is going to live in it or not. Okay, it's really loosely written. And then the last thing is there an NOD? So anytime you've got a property with an NOD on it, you know, you'd be looking, making sure the other 3, you know, obviously the number 1 applies because it's residential 1 to 4, but you need to be looking at 2 and 3. See, they just did this one in January of this year. So again, the attorneys did a great job on that. Tenant in the property, you know, my TEC, probably one of my favorite forms. And again, a whole nother class, but I wanted you to be aware of that. And this is my SLIC form. And then whoopsies, go, oh, get up there we go. And then my seller property questionnaire addendum. So let's talk about that first, just real quick. And I'm not going to spend, I want to get you out of here. I know you're probably chomping at the bit, but so this is going to be my SPQA. And again, this is what San Diego did in response to California creating the seller property questionnaire. We said, well, you know what? There's stuff that's particular to San Diego that's not included on the form. So this one's 6 pages. The SPQ is 4. The SPQA is 6. Trust me. And listen, they didn't reinvent the wheel. You know, question number 5 on the SPQ, seller awareness. Well, we just wanted to add this. Question number 6, nothing to add. You did a good job. Question number 7, copies of documents, not in the SPQ. I think it will be someday, but you know, they usually look at what we're doing to determine what they're going to do. So everybody okay with that? Going back to my PowerPoint. So, and then the RLA. Right? So the RLA, what? It is the last form that I'm going to put in front of the client to sign. Why? Because it's what they wanted to talk about all along. Right. And so, you know, I always like to work backwards in my listing appointment. And you know, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We'll have that conversation later. But right now, I need you to talk about all this. Folks, I've had them in front of me for 2 hours, right? We've been filling out forms, doing disclosures. You know, if by chance in their brain they still won't list with me, then, you know, they've wasted their time. I'll take everything with me. Right, that kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is, I've just never had anybody deny me. Maybe I'm just that charming, right? But so the last form the client signs is going to be my RLA. Why? Well, because that's what it's got everything they want to talk about. And I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. And by the way, they never argue with me about my commissions when they realize what value I bring to the table. So we've had this great big long conversation with the seller sitting at the table for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. they're going to even comment, wow, we've been here quite some time. Yeah, well, we came here to do business, and my job is to get you as much as I possibly can for your house. And so that's how it's going to do. So pricing discussion's already done. I always talk about a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day price, how fast you need to sell it. I had an attorney call me one day, a tax attorney, and he called me up on the phone. He said, I need you to sell this house for me. And I said, okay, how long do I have? And they said, I want it to close in 10 days. So give me the 10-day price. I gave him the 10-day price. I had like 30 offers on this thing. I gave him a 10-day price and we closed it in 10 days. And we were racing with the IRS on some stuff. They were racing. I wasn't, I had nothing to do with it. He's a tax attorney, for crying out loud. And we were able to get the cash out of it. It was owned free and clear. But boy, was it a mess. So anyway, I gave them the price. So be prepared to give them the short, what's going to make it sell fast, what's going to make it sell slow, what's going to make it slowest, right? Commission discussion, you're already done. You sell your services, not your price. At this point, you should be discussing what? How quickly do you need to sell, right? And then the big motivator, right? It's like, what is your reason for selling? We want to be with the grandkids in Idaho, right? They're always going to tell you, but it's not important. It's like, lie to me. You don't want to be with the grandkids. Listen, I can assure you, I've got grandkids that are way more important to Linda than they are to me. So I shouldn't say that. It's a terrible thing to say, but no, I love the grandkids, but I don't need to be on top of them every day. I mean, it's like, I got things to do. So what's your reasoning? Why do you need to go? I've got a job that starts on Monday. Well, now they really got to go, right? Okay. All right. So what attracted you to purchase this house in the first place? House, not home. Okay. House in the first place. Right. So you're working on your marketing plan here. And this is my whole point. I ask these questions. Why? Because I'm working on what my ads are going to look like. Right. What attracted you to buy this place? Do you have any favorite pictures? Sometimes they'll have better pictures than you have, than you're going to be able to take, right? Because they're out there at sunset enjoying the ocean, the sun setting over the ocean, and they're taking pictures of all that. Are you going to go back there at night and take those? They've got good pictures. Can I use those pictures? That's what I'm going to do. Do you have any favorite pictures, right? Can you give me a list of upgrades that you have done to the house? And that is really important. And I ask for this all the time because why? Because they've done stuff to the house, right? And so can you give me that list? And then, by the way, not just that, but who did it? Do you have any receipts? Why? Because I need, may improve the value of the property significantly. Plus, I'm probably going to want to hand those to the appraiser. Okay, because otherwise people don't see necessarily, it used to be a 3-bedroom, now it's a 4-bedroom. They don't necessarily see that, right? Work the referral. Where are you moving to? And so I may know someone there who can help. Like I said this morning, I had an agent at my office in back in the 80s who never sold a house, didn't know how to write a contract. All she ever did was call FSBOs in the newspaper and say, where are you moving to? And then she would hook them up with a realtor. And this was back when, before cell phones, the long distance call was not free. But she knew nobody else would do it. So she would do it. She would call, find them somebody, can I have somebody send you some free stuff? They loved it, right? But she knew nobody else was going to compete with her on that, right? So unpeel the onion. Ask a lot of questions. Very, very important. All right. Remember, talk less, listen more. Write everything down. Okay, in front of them. Again, as Rico said a second ago, on the listing input sheet, so you have your notes. Brag about your brand. Be proud of where you are. Really, seriously, come on, right? So coordinate your strategy. Don't be a secret agent. All right. And so, people, I often say, I'm not a secret agent. It's very clear what I do for a living. Okay. So real estate is a full contact sport. And so I'm here to help. If there's anything that I can do for you, excuse me. Any additional thoughts? Anybody have any questions? Now's a great time. Thank you for joining us. If you want to get to any of those videos that we talked about, so everything that I do is being taped. They can't see you, they can't see your questions. That people can only hear my talk and the presentation, but I load them all up onto the YouTube website. So they've all been going up there. If you've got a QR code reader, this is going to be a good opportunity for you to take a picture. And there's the QR code link. I just learned how to do this about a month ago. So even I can learn new things, folks. So we all can do do that. So that's the QR code. Or you could just type into your browser at Burke Real Estate Consultants Inc. This is how your email address should be, uppercase B, uppercase R, well, obviously your name or whatever. And please stop using the Gmail. Get your domain name. You're in this business for the long term. You're gonna wish 10 years from now you'd bought your name. Okay. We also have this. So again, I said earlier today that my RPA class has been approved by the Department of Real Estate for 5 hours of continuing education credit. I was honored when the head of the department called me up and said, "I'm really excited. I can't wait to read your treatise on the RPA." So I had to create the website to put the form up there so that you'd be able to sign up for the class. So it's not there yet, but this is the bit.ly link. So in this case is important. It's all lowercase. So bit.ly/REAL-estate-ed. Ed is short for education, and that'll take you right to it. Please remember, if you wouldn't mind terribly, like and subscribe to it. I don't make any money on this. I just really want to help you. But if you subscribe, what happens when I upload the new videos? So I have a whole bunch of people that have subscribed. And now when I load up the videos in the next day or so, what I've been doing in the last 2 weeks, they'll get a notice that says you uploaded some new videos. So I want you to get those, okay? Because it's really kind of important. Again, as I always say, if you look good, you make me look good. So I really want you to look good. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Grateful. Yeah, I definitely. Thank you so much. Nice comment. I appreciate that. I really do. But like and subscribe, and again, not because they don't send me a check, right? But I want you to know when I put the new stuff up there. There's always good stuff up there, right? I'm always doing it as much as I can. Thank you so much, Anonymous. So again, Education SDAR, it's not just a committee, it's a department. Reach out to them. If I had an attorney send in an email, copied me on the email and said, "Can you teach a class on agency?" And so, I'm sitting here thinking, I could teach a class to attorneys, it would be a 3-hour class, but I think for us as real estate agent, we'd probably do it in 45 minutes. But the point being that agency is a complicated subject. It really is. And so unless you have a signed employment agreement with someone, you're really not their agent. They think that you are, and you think that you are, but you really need a signed written agreement with the principal. Okay. So thank you so much, Rico. Thank you. So send them an email, copy me, whatever. I do have a list of updates. I don't put people on it. It goes out once a week. And by the way, it has a clickable link to all my classes. So the classes I've already created it it'll go out Friday night at 11:30. And it has clickable links to my classes so you can get in. Sometimes you go to other places to get into the class. It'll say classes sold out. But I want you there. I want you, hopefully you gain from this. The advantage of me doing this live with you is that you get to ask questions. We've got quite a few questions in there. And I thank you for that. I'm honored by that. And seriously, you get a chance to ask questions that you would not have if you're just looking at the tape version. So, but I know people that go back and watch the tapes time and time again. So, anyway, I had a guy call me on the phone. I think some of you heard the story, but I was having dinner at a restaurant. I was on travel, and I get a phone call while I'm eating, and I talking to this guy, and he says, I just watched your video on the preliminary title of how to read a prelim. And he said, God, that's the best thing I've ever seen on the subject. It was amazing. And I said, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And who are you? And he says, I'm a buyer. At first I'm thinking he's an agent, but then I realized, oh no, this is somebody's buyer. And I go, well, I really can't talk to you about your transaction. There's interference with contract, a couple of other torts. And he said, yeah, I know I couldn't get my agent to give me the answer. I couldn't get a title officer to give me the answer. And I said, well, I'm really sorry about that, but I'm glad you got some value out of this. And so again, this is one of the reasons at some point I'm going to have to put up a firewall, but obviously the public is going there. Plaintiffs' attorneys are going there. Sometimes I think cases don't happen because they realize, no, this guy's got it down. But I want you to be good. I really do. I want you to be profitable, be successful in real estate, and I'm hoping I can help you get there. And so we've gone a little bit over the time period, but I thank you again. And so folks, really seriously, I hope you have a great weekend. If there's anything I can help you with, please call me. You can call me, send me an email is probably a little bit better. And I'm probably not going to get a chance to respond to the emails for a while after I do so like, for example, I'm signing off now. I'll probably go in there, grab the emails and start responding to them as fast as I can, but I still have emails emails from this morning to respond to. So please send me an email. I want to talk with you. If I don't respond to you, that means I misplaced it. Okay. So please, you're not bothering me. Hit me again. Okay. So I want to thank you all for being here today. I very much appreciate the value of your time, and thank you for the compliments. And Anonymous, you've got the zip form edition. You know how to get into that. Anything I can do for you folks, please let me know. You're not a bother. I like hearing from you. But as we say from my hometown of Del Mar, I look forward to seeing you around the track. Thank you again, everybody. Take care for now. Bye-bye.